Good morning, everyone. It's Saturday, which means it's time for yet another Salty Saturday morning. I am your belabored host, Mr. Kadish. And if I sound a little bit weird, it is because I'm still recovering from a cold. I want to thank my compatriot, Alex, the salty nerd himself, for hosting last week.
Hey!
While I quietly, lurked in the background and ran the show in secret. But enough about me. Let's talk about our fantastic panel of nerds, starting with the man, the myth, the legend, Dutch Butters himself. How you doing, Mr. Butters?
Hi, I'm good. I got my helmet on today because I'm feeling a little weird. And, I didn't want to comb my hair before I put my helmet on like Brian does. It's weird.
I didn't know he was going to start with us.
You're the only person I know that combs your hair to put your hat on, dude. It's very strange. It's very weird.
I'm not the only person that does that.
You're the only person I know that does that.
I don't want to have tangled hair.
Okay. Yeah.
I think you guys aren't used to it because you haven't had hair for a while.
If you just wear a helmet around all the time like I do, then you wouldn't have to worry about it.
He's got to brush it back to fit it under the cap.
That's true,
Mr. Butters.
Mm-hmm.
But Mr. Butters, you do have a big and fragile brain, so it's a good thing
that's why I wear
wearing headgear.
Important. It's important.
Exactly.
Got a soft skull. I've been wearing it since I was 2 years old. So
soft skull.
It's one of those corrective helmets.
That
They've slowly modified.
I told the doctor to make it look cool, so I could,
well, it is a medical condition to have as soft of a skull as you do.
It's translucent as well. It's
translucent. But Brian from the Popcast, he's here. He's queer. He's our shield against everything intersectional and woke. How you doing, Brian?
Not bad. I am a bad shield because my big giant documentary that should have been out early this week, we've been trying to get put up for 5 days, and we're at the point where we're probably going to break it up into 3 smaller documentaries, still an hour long about. But YouTube is just being so mean to me right now. It's not even
put it on Rumble.
They're being mean to everyone, man.
Yeah.
We here in the movie tube business, like we can't use contextual clips. Basically,
it's crazy.
Like every time you put like a second or two of a scene from a movie or a song or whatever, YouTube's like, nope, blocked from the entire world. Can't make any money off it. Can't see it.
I had Universal claim footage of my face talking about Jurassic Park as footage of Jurassic World. Yeah. So there's multiple layers of insanity to this claim, but it was like, here's the timestamp, and I'm like, that's my face. Yeah. You are claiming my face talking about a different movie. Like, what are you doing?
I have the same problem. I have a Disney claiming me for an Alien clip, and it's not even a clip. It's Shane talking about a clip, and there's text on the screen. And I'm like, what the is going on right now?
Yeah, YouTube system is really terrible, and I wish that they would just allow fair use. It's crazy. Speaking of fair use, the man who loves pineapple on his pizza, the man whose shelves are stronger than any shelves in the entire world, Odin of OMB Reviews. Welcome, buddy.
He also combs his hair just as much as I do.
Combs his beard for sure.
2 lies in the same sentence. I cannot believe you, good sir. Glad to be here.
That's how talented I am.
Uh-huh. Sorry, I was a little bit late. Things have always been a little bit hectic now with the 2 kids. So,
well, it's okay. We know that you're a big shot who appears regularly on FNT. So we're grateful that you slum it here with us every Saturday.
Depending on who you ask, it would be occasionally on FNT, as oftentimes I have to jump off camera because I have something to deal with my kids. So
that shelf there to the side next to your head looks like it's a little stressed. Is it going to fall
very
down?
stressed.
This one right here? Well, this is one of those fancy ones where it's like the modern design.
You got some stuff on that thing.
You can put them this way and then stack them this way. So yeah,
it's full. Looking like a lot of books, bro.
It's a lot of
books.
It
is. That's what it's made for. And if it falls, then you know what? Hey, at least it's not the movie collection that's in order. So
you know whose shells are sturdy is that of our special guest, Sean Chandler, from I have such respect for Sean because not only does he show up on time, prepared, he's got great lighting, but he's also wearing very festive pajama pants just for our stream.
It's very true.
It's true. I dressed classy for this live stream.
Yes. Welcome back to the show, Sean. You are the standard by which we all hope to one day achieve because you're actually out there doing movie reviewer stuff and succeeding at it. So welcome to the show.
I appreciate it.
It's got good shelf game going on back there.
Yes, these nice shelves from Lowe's that I constructed. Some of them. My wife is actually the handy person in our house. I'm actually rather incompetent at most things besides talking to a camera. So then I have to have my wife save me.
I understand. If it comes with an Allen wrench and about 20 pieces, my wife won't let me near it.
Right.
Won't let me near it. So
that's about right.
Yeah.
You definitely give Odin a run for his money when it comes to the shelf game. So.
That is my goal in life, really. Shelf dominance. Thanks, wife.
I will gladly see that over, because these are just the cheap ones you get on sale off Amazon, and that's why they fall if you don't have them up against the wall.
Exactly. Sean, what's your views on pineapple on pizza?
I am pro pineapple on pizza. I'm totally game for pineapple on the pizza. An interesting flavor combination that surprisingly works, even though you wouldn't think it would. It is amazing, and everyone should eat it all the time.
Excommunicado. That's all I have to say to that.
It's a sweet and spicy thing. Yeah,
exactly.
No,
pepper on top of it, pineapple, just all of it at the same time. Gummy bears, syrup, delicious stuff.
You blaspheme!
I know there was a reason I respected Sean so much, so it's very good. Sean, do you have any upcoming appearances? Because you travel a lot, you go to all types of events.
At the moment, I don't have anything lined up. I normally go to MegaCon, but they have been very difficult. So it doesn't look like I'm going to head this year. So now that on the schedule right now, just talking movies on YouTube.
And for our listeners out there, Sean is normally quite the professional, but we were having some technical issues with StreamYard where basically they weren't recognizing his actual mic. So he's going to sound a little bit more bass heavy than the rest of us for this this live stream. But don't worry, it's just the voice of God coming down from on high.
StreamYard.
So, yeah, StreamYard.
Put pineapple on pizza.
Exactly.
Burn it.
I want to give a big shout out to our top supporters. We got Scotty Dub, Brian G, and William Forbus as some of our top super chatters. And also Scotty Dub is still holding the title as our top contributor for the year. Just keep in mind, guys, that once 2025 rolls around, all this stuff resets back to normal. So, we're going to have a brand new, fresh leaderboard going into January. Mexican Iron Man is our most consistent donator, so we appreciate him. And of course, we also have our top gifters, Jillian N., the Queen of Gifted Memberships, Bob Dorsey, Sam Schwager, Major Chai Chai, and Eric Winberg. Guys, fun fact, Eric Winberg has already donated his obligatory One Salty Nerd Gifted Podcast membership. And Major Chai Chai coming in strong with the top 5 and dropping 5 gifted memberships, bringing us to a total of 6 for this live stream. Really appreciate you guys.
Oh, look.
And right, coming in the clutch, we got the Queen herself, Jillian N., gifting 5 Salty Nerd Podcast memberships, bringing us up to 11. And guys, do you know what that means? It means that according to Mr. Butters, we only have about 4 more gifted members to go.
So
we hit our goal.
4 more till we move the goalpost, right?
Right. Yeah. 4 more. Yeah, we gotta move it. Keep moving it.
No. I just want to hit 15. If we hit 15, we're fine.
That's what he says now.
Yes. And guys, don't forget to clip and comment on the show. So like if you like a part, you think it's funny, clip it out, share it on YouTube, share it on the socials, or if you just want to let us know what you think about it, drop it in the comments. And guys, I don't know if you know this or not, but Brian, in order to get on even further on the bad side of YouTube, decided to do a political show on Saturdays. The Brain Show, starting at 12:30 Pacific time, 3:30 Eastern, where him and his brother Shane wax philosophical about all the things that can get you demonetized on YouTube.
Yeah.
Brian, are you doing a show today?
No. No, I'm not.
Great promo.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I appreciate the promotion, and we're gonna eventually be back doing it. And I'm really tired of saying next week, but we are currently locked out of that account. So we'll get in there soon.
The YouTube game is not for the faint of heart. But
No,
you know who is doing a show next is Mephisto for Mephisto's movie reviews. Guys, you will automatically be transferred to the Real McCoy podcast, which is where Mephisto and his content creation partner talk about movies and TV shows and all that good stuff. So stay tuned after Salty Saturdays to check out Mephisto's movie reviews, the Real McCoy podcast. All right, guys. So enough of the housekeeping stuff. Real quick before we get into the meat of the program, I just want to have a quick conversation with Dutch Butters about Secret Level, which is Amazon's new kind of like anthology series where they basically create animated versions of like stories from well-loved video games. And I finished all the first round of episodes last night, and it's kind of a mixed bag. Some of them are pretty good, some of them not so good. I was kind of interested in the final episode that starred Keanu Reeves, which was kind of cool. It kind of reminded me of what he did in Cyberpunk 2077, something like that. But yeah, for the most part, the Unreal Tournament and the Warhammer 40K were the best, in my opinion. And the worst, without a doubt, was the Pac-Man one, unfortunately.
I totally agree. Yes.
Yeah. So, Dutch, what was your take on the Secret Level shows?
I'm pretty much right there where you are. I enjoyed most of them for the most point. The Pac-Man episode was just weird trash. I don't even get what they were trying to do. It was very strange. But how do you make a weird animated show about Pac-Man? I mean, I guess you can go to the Saturday morning cartoon that they did back in the day. But yeah, this was just some weird kind of modern sci-fi take. This guy had to go do some serious drugs or something and give us his version of Pac-Man after a ayahuasca trip, I think, or something. Man, it was completely out there. The Dungeons and Dragons episode, the first one, while it was interesting, you could tell that Wizards of the Coast had their little wokey fingers all plunged all over in that thing. But it was interesting. Didn't really like it a whole lot. But it is what it was. But the Sifu one was it was short, but for never having played the game before, I thought it was a really well done story. I enjoyed the crap out of it. You'll pick up right on it really easy, even if you're not familiar with the lore about how it works.
This one, the New World one, was a pleasant surprise for me because it's basically a young Arnold Schwarzenegger doing like a parody of like Conan, King Conan type thing. But it was funny because like basically he plays this guy who's like it's his birthright to be king, and he crash lands or gets shipwrecked on an island where you become an immortal. And so every time he tries to become king, he just gets his ass kicked.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty funny.
Dies. Yeah. If you're familiar with these games, then you'll understand these stories a little bit more. I'd never played that game, so it took me a second to figure out what was happening, but he's basically on an island. It's kind of like purgatory. You die, you get regenerated, and you start over again. So he has a long time to figure out what his life's going to be about while he's on that island. But it's good stuff. I enjoyed the crap out of it. But the highlight for me was absolutely the Unreal Tournament and the Warhammer 40K episodes. Those were just next level entertainment, man. And the Warhammer 40K one kind of like is the same character as that plays in the Warhammer Space Marine games. It's about Titus when he shows him when he's a kid and his master and stuff and how what they do there. It's probably one of the best animated things I've ever seen in my life, to be completely honest with you. It was pretty good. It's just incredible. And if you're a fan of 40K at all, you will lose your mind watching that episode because Are they like standalone stories? Like you could just watch one?
Yes. Yeah. It's like Black Mirror.
Are you familiar with Love, Sex, and Robots?
I haven't seen it, but I'm aware of it.
Same people, same concept.
Okay.
They take
every episode's a different story.
Yeah, all these episodes, they're anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes long. They're all standalone, and they're all just set in different video game universes. And they're all most of them are really good so far. So
yeah, speaking of not good, Pac-Man: The Circle. This was the worst of the bunch, in my opinion. Then we had the second worst, in my opinion, which was Crossfire. I'd never heard of this game. It was a very boring episode, in my opinion. Like it looked good, but like I just didn't care about what was happening. But the finale, which was Armored Core, and this is the one that Keanu Reeves starred in, I thought this one was really well done. So out of the 8 episodes, they had maybe like 2 misses and like maybe like, I don't know, 1 meh, which was the Dungeons and Dragons one. But overall, it's good, and they have like a second round coming out pretty soon. Is that right, Dutch?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I have one complaint. Why aren't the video games? I'm not saying Dungeons and Dragons and Warhammer or not, but some of these games are not. They're not like top tier S tier games. There's so many games you can pick from, and they're picking games that we've never even heard of before. I'm confused.
I think it's a rights thing. I know that in the second round they have a Concord episode.
Yeah, that one's gonna go over well.
And that was a game that basically was like the biggest flop of the year, and like it just got canceled. It's a terrible.
So it's a rights issue, basically.
That's what I'm thinking.
That makes sense.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, speaking of Warhammer,
just real quick, Matt. I just want to say, you can see Alex back there behind you right now. He's actually at this very moment editing a episode of Secret Level that me and him recorded, where we're reviewing each one of these episodes together. We're going to be releasing that on our Salty Nerd Gaming channel later today. So if you guys don't want to go over there and check that out later, that'd be great. So.
Yeah, but speaking of Warhammer, guys, we have some news on the Warhammer front where Henry Cavill, who was announced that he got the rights to Warhammer 40K, they just came out and said that Amazon has officially greenlit a TV series based off of Warhammer 40K that Henry Cavill will not only be producing, but starring in. And this is kind of like a big deal because famously Henry Cavill got kind of screwed over on The Witcher because he was a fan of the source material and he was playing the lead character. And then the woke showrunners basically decided to make it about feminism and women and girl power and all that other stuff, and basically sidelined the main character of the show. And it got to the point where Henry Cavill was basically quit The Witcher to move on. And Warhammer 40K is something that he's been passionate about since he was a little kid. And now he gets to basically, in an Instagram post, he announced that he convened a writer's room where he's been working with some creatives and also Games Workshop to basically go through all the Warhammer lore and figure out, okay, what's the story we want to tell? And they settled on something. They pitched it to Amazon. Amazon loved it. And so it is now going forward. However, Amazon is kind of a mixed bag because we also have, like Rings of Power, we have Citadel, we have all these shows that should have been amazing that basically just got mishandled. There's been no showrunner announced for 40K, but I assume that Henry Cavill, being a producer, has a say in who comes on board to run the show. Dutch, you played the latest Warhammer 40K game. You're kind of versed in the lore.
Not really, but okay.
Are you excited about a Warhammer 40K original series on Amazon?
I'm excited about it if they can actually pull it off and do it right. I mean, that video we just saw on a Secret Level, if they can pull that off with live action, I mean, that's what we come to expect now. And if Henry Cavill can do that, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be really, really cool. Do I think they can do it? I don't know. I have my doubts, but we'll see. We'll see how much Amazon can leave their fingers out of it and let Henry do his thing. And if he can do his thing, then it's going to be fantastic. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, Brian, do you think that there's a danger of this thing getting hijacked by wokeism? Because Games Workshop has proven that they're really into that type of thing.
Of course it is. And
Games Workshop is not woke. Games Workshop is anti-woke. It's not Games Workshop where you're going to have the woke problems come from.
The studio portion.
It's going to be the studio and Amazon. Yeah.
Yeah. Now the studio, although I'll give Amazon this, they are very good at allowing the people they hire to do the job do whatever they want, even if that's a bad idea. So you see shows that are produced by companies like like Reacher and I mean, there's a lot. Amazon has a lot of good shows, and often the good shows really shine because they're not being bothered by the studio, and the bad shows really don't shine because they weren't bothered by the studio. So to be fair, Amazon's pretty good at allowing whoever they hire to do that particular job do their job. So it's possible that we get a really good show with Henry Cavill able to do his thing, able to like really capture the character. He loves Warhammer. Like, do you ever see that video of him like painting Warhammer figures? It's awesome. The guy's a super nerd that's jacked. It's pretty cool.
It's one of the fun things about him is that he's an actual nerd. And when he just shows what he's like, hey, look, I built a computer. He just happens to look like Henry Cavill.
Yeah.
That's what he's interested in. It's like every other, but everyone else.
You have this massive hulked out dude, and he's like painting a little war figure. He's like, this one right here is where the blue thing. I'm like, it's so weird. He's like painting Warhammer figures. And it sort of sucks because the Witcher series, that he was into it. He loves Witcher. They actually complained about him not socializing with the cast and instead playing video games, aka Witcher, in his trailer. They complained about him not hanging out and being a part of their little club, and that he was disconnected because he didn't want to hang out with a bunch of woke feminist chicks, and he'd rather play video games with his boys. I mean, he's the definition of us. And he didn't get a chance to do what he wanted to do on that. I think that he was able to throw his weight around a little bit and make that show really good. Like the first season is really good, mostly. And I think that it got really insane with how much pressure he had to deal with the people on the set that want to do what they want to do. And you know what's funny is like going back, we did a deep dive on this, going back and reading all the articles and all the write-ups and all the little things that were coming out at that time. I think Henry Cavill was straight up just sexually harassed by these people nonstop. And they complained when he didn't reciprocate, that he didn't spend time with them, that he didn't, he wasn't into their advances. How often at one point he said, he goes, I don't really want to do another scene where I take my shirt off for no reason. And I'm like, what is going on with this production? A bunch of thirsty cat ladies over there that don't care about the game, don't care about the lore, and they just want to get as many scenes as they could with Henry Cavill's shirt off.
Which is understandable.
I mean, it's understandable, but like flip the script though. Like let's say like put a bunch of horny dudes, incels, that in their entire purpose is not to make Bridgerton or whatever, but instead just get all the characters' clothes off. It's like it would be it's a little insane the second you flip that around. The one of the complaints that woman had was that he didn't want to socialize with them. Look, dude, actors, employees, people that work for you don't have to socialize with you. If we're doing a job together, we don't gotta hang out. I gotta do my job, and I'm gonna go back to my trailer and play some video games. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever.
Yeah, and Henry Cavill in particular, I think he took he took issue with the fact that they kept making him take baths, right? Or like he would have to like get naked apparently. And
why are we in a bath again, you guys? What's going on?
Yeah, exactly.
And then again, there's a bath in the middle of like the woods. I don't get it. Shut up, Henry. Get in the bath.
Exactly.
Light the candles and get in the bath.
Clothes off, chest out. Let's go.
He's like, look, we still need to keep doing this take. The water's getting cold. I'm almost there. I mean, we're almost there.
But Sean, what's interesting about Henry Cavill is like he's actually never done anything that kind of warrants his like star status. Like, yes, he did Superman. He was known for Superman, but like the Superman movies that he did, like they didn't like break box office records or anything like that. It's just that he's such a cool guy that a fan base kind of formed around him, right? Mm-hmm. And to give him basically the keys to this show where he hasn't really produced anything before, right? But he's so passionate about this project and he has the nerd cred to pull it off that a lot of people are excited to see what he's going to come up with. Do you think that under his supervision that this show is going to be any good?
That's the reason I have kind of faith in it. And as you said, he has this very strange version of stardom where his level of fame actually exceeds his successes, but it's like people want him to have that win. I only watched The Witcher because he was in it. I haven't played the video games or read the books. It was like, oh, Henry Cavill's running around swinging a sword. Oh, I'm going to check that out. Wait, he's leaving the show? I guess I'm checking out. I didn't even watch season because like, what's the point?
Yeah, same. That's a good point.
And like, I haven't played Warhammer, but as soon as he says he's interested in it, now I'm interested in it. And two, a lot of what Brian said, Amazon seems to let the quality of the showrunner, the worldview of the showrunner determines what that show turns out to be. And so they've allowed there to be a number of kind of these throwback action shows that are like all those action thrillers we got in the 90s. They're now TV shows on Amazon Prime that are not doing anything to cater to 20-year-olds on Twitter or anything like that. They are designed entirely for me.
Blue Sky now. Blue Sky.
Yes. It's so they'll allow that to happen, but then of course then you also have Rings of Power, which they allowed that to happen. And so the idea that they're hiring him and he is so passionate doing the writer's room, like that sounds like it's promising. What were you saying?
I was saying, here's billions of dollars. Do whatever you think is best.
Yeah, kind of like that's almost like that's what they did with Rings of Power. Like $1 billion, run and do a thing. Oh, it's terrible, and it's not at all what Tolkien fans want. Oh well, let you do it. But then Reacher's going on in the same studio right down the hallway. So that you have Cavill as the producer, that he is the guy painting the little deals, and that he has had these bad experiences that by now he would know what to notice. Like he knows what are the good signs, what are the bad signs. He did The Witcher. He saw how that went. And so he's probably going into this with much more cautious, wanting more control, and being able to say, they sound crazy and they don't even like the IP. Why would we hire them?
Yeah, Odin, Amazon has a really bad track record of spending tons of money on really substandard fare. And to Dutch Butter's point, like they need to be able to do Warhammer 40K right. So like they're going to have to spend a lot of money on this sucker. What do you think is going to be Amazon's like take on this? Do you think they're going to throw some money at this thing, or is this going to be one of those things where basically they don't get the support that they need in order to do it right?
Honestly, after Rings of Power having now been a thing and them wasting so much money on it when there's clearly just nothing to it and no actual fan base, I cannot fathom why they wouldn't give him all the money that he requested. Like, I just really can't. Like, if they're going to go ahead and justify all of the money that they're wasting on Rings of Power for an audience of maybe a few people, like in the grand scheme of things, and then they're going to shun a project like this where you actually do have a dedicated fan base, you have a dedicated showrunner, someone who is going to clearly do right to the property, bring a lot of people along with him as well, it would really be stupid of them to not give him at least a modest budget, at least basically something that he can actually and all the creatives behind it could actually work with to create the best possible product for it. And again, I think really it comes down to this really being anything Amazon related in the future. It's like they're going to have to put their money where their mouth is because there's no reason for them not to. And the other thing is, as someone who follows box office stuff, what I will say is that it seems like Amazon does not really have as much of a problem shelling out money. Because you look at some of these films that they have going through MGM, and it's like hundreds of millions of dollars for these properties that are not making anything. They're not really bringing anybody to their platform, not really bringing anyone to the box office. So honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if they do get almost all they want, because it seems like they're acting as a company that has an infinite amount of money. And I suppose when you're like $1 trillion corporation, yeah, maybe you do have that kind of money to throw around. But at some point, you got to make some money back. And so this sounds like it'd be a much smarter investment, one that we'll actually possibly get newer users on the platform, keeping the fans happy, having more people using your overall Amazon ecosystem that are not already potentially using it. And I think it would be a huge win for them to do it.
That's where, like, some of these, it's where you realize it, like, with these corporations, Amazon, Apple, that are $1 trillion companies, their movie division, it's like their hobby, and at $200 million is their blow money that they're just throwing around. Like some of these Apple movies, like $200 million towards that, or like you said, Red One, $250 million towards something that's like, what? Who thought that this could possibly be profitable? Just throwing money at it. But Fallout, they threw a ton of money at that. And so I think that they do give money to their projects. So I think they will. They'll give it to terrible ones. So hopefully they'll give it to this good one.
Yeah, it's called money laundering, Sean. That's what it comes down to.
You know what I noticed? You know what I noticed about Henry Cavill movies? And you can go back and look at every one of my reviews. Every one of my reviews, the biggest complaint I have, if the movie is decent, is that there wasn't enough Cavill in it. Like Ungentlemanlike Warfare, whatever that movie was. Like, I was sold Cavill, but then half the movie was about someone else. So I was like, it's a bummer. The one with Matthew, I forgot the movie. It's about a cat lady. Anyways, that movie,
the spy movie
about the cat lady. It was sold as a Henry Cavill movie, and he was in it, but not really the character. You think.
Argyle.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad. But my biggest complaint in every one of these movies is that there's not enough Cavill, and I don't really understand it, because every time he's on screen, it's awesome. He's great. He's super charismatic. So I really hope that with this show that we do with Cavill, that they allow Cavill to shine, because I'm a fan of Cavill.
I just hear Brian's really thirsty for Cavill.
Yeah.
But aren't we all?
I don't mind the bath scenes, okay? As long as they keep coming out.
Brian has the bath scene from The Witcher on loop.
That's right.
Constantly.
It's actually
Don't we all?
Screenshot on my phone.
It's a good scene.
Yeah, but you know, Odin, what's interesting to me is that MGM Plus, which is, you know, basically creating a lot of originals for Amazon, they have some really good shows on there. Like From is probably one of the best shows I've seen in a long time. But then you have stuff like Citadel, which was just like pure crap, right? But it costs like $600 million.
There's 3 Citadels already. They had 2 different foreign language Citadel spinoffs come out in the last 2 months. Like that's insane. That's crazy.
Yeah, and they're all in foreign languages, and it's like who's watching this
right.
stuff?
Like casually, let's throw out this thing, and you're like, Citadel has 2 different massive budget spinoffs. What are you doing?
And it's weird because it's French and Indian or Hindi, right?
Yeah.
So like I think they're trying to hit like those, you know, especially the Hindi market, but at the same time, like you're like, why are you throwing good money after bad? Nobody cares about this franchise, right? So
like it has nothing unique to offer. It's just expensive spy stuff. That's all it is.
Yeah, and again, it really just shows you that how much F around money they have, because any other company that we can think of, even like major ones like Disney, when we hear about all of the massive flops that they had, especially back in 2023, and how little success they've had in a lot of their films over the last several years, with really only this one being the one where they finally had a bit of a comeback, we were like, okay, how long can you really sustain this? Whereas if it happens to a company like Amazon or Apple, I have the same idea. It's like, okay, you can't just run at a loss forever, but then at the same time, it's like they are still making crap tons of money through these other properties that they have and these other ways, outside of filmmaking, outside of TV, that they're able to make all this money. So yeah, maybe is there even an end point for them? I don't know. I mean, I would have thought $1 billion wasted on Rings of Power would be enough, but apparently not the case. Gosh.
All right, guys, real quick, we got a super sticker from Mexican Iron Man for $9.99. Good to see our regular, most consistent contributor back on the show. Thank you, Mexican Iron Man. We appreciate you. And for those of you who can't see it, the super sticker is #1 fan. He's our #1 fan. And for $1.99, we have Fa Kyu Asuke Miu D. Enjoy this dono. I will be in the jungles of Cambo.
Enjoy this dono. I will be in jungles of Cambo.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah. Thank you, Fa Kyu. Really appreciate your support. Always love his super chats. It's always good to go.
Fuck you.
Wow.
I said fa. Ooh, that's his name.
Yeah. Okay.
Suki Miyu. Yes, indeed. All right, guys. So let's talk a little bit about Chris Evans. Somehow Chris Evans returned to Marvel. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but the big announcement is that Chris Evans is set to return in Avengers Doomsday alongside Iron Man himself, Robert Downey Jr., who's a different type of Iron Man. He's Dr. Doom now. But it's kind of interesting because they made a big deal about passing the torch from Chris Evans to Anthony Mackie. And basically Anthony Mackie's headlining the new Captain America movie, Captain America Brave New World. And we've talked about this on the show before about how problematic that movie is turning out to be for Marvel. And so my thinking is that they're basically trying to bring Chris Evans back because they realize their mistake. And Chris Evans hasn't been lighting up the box office since he left Marvel. And so like Like, we talked about like, why is Henry Cavill a star? It's like, why is Chris Evans even on Hollywood's A list? Because like, he doesn't open movies, right? The only movies he's able to open is Captain America. So him coming back to Marvel seems like an admission of error or defeat by both the studio and the actor himself. But Sean, I'd like to get your take on this. Why do you think Chris Evans is going to be coming back to the Avengers franchise?
Well, first off, I think it's funny that the headlines were Chris Evans finally returning to the MCU after 5 months. He's in Deadpool Wolverine 5 months ago, and he's finally going to be back in another Avengers movie since he was also in the last Avengers movie. So we haven't like skipped over anything. He's just back. Like, I think you can look at his box office track record, and he hasn't done anything interesting, and he's done these big blockbusters that were just so generic that they're just forgettable. Was that the Gray Man with the Russos, and then Red One, and he's been in stuff. Was he in Ghosted? Like, just all of the prime examples of the streaming movies that are the epitome of like, was this written by AI? Was this just optimized for streaming platforms? That's what he stars in. And so he's out there, but he hasn't done a single thing that pops besides being, I guess, in Knives Out, which is an ensemble film. Like, nothing in 5 years. So naturally he wants to stay at that status. An Avengers movie is going to be the movie that's going to be Ripples. So it's pretty obvious why he wants to come back. And I wouldn't even mind him. Like, the idea that he would come back for Secret Wars, I was always assuming that was going to be everybody comes back for it. But the way that all of this is playing out, that they're not promoting it based on the new Avengers because nobody even knows who they are. Nobody cares who they are. All of the announcements for the next Avengers movies are like, hey, look, the old Avengers are coming back, which is just an admission that they haven't developed any new talent or any new stars in 5 years. And so it's tough for it to not just come off just so desperate on every front.
Yep. Odin, do you think that by doing this, because we've been very adamant about how Marvel has just been screwing the pooch, and yes, Deadpool 3 was kind of like a glimmer of hope, but Marvel really didn't have much to do with that movie, right? So is this an admission that basically they realize that they've been going in the wrong direction?
Not really, because kind of going back to it with what's been said already, this really isn't going to move the needle at all. Like even Robert Downey Jr., as much as I like him, and there's a lot of other people in general who like him and like his movies, he is not someone, and this is really the age of Hollywood. There's no one in Hollywood that they themselves being in a movie can make a film be a huge success. It depends on the kind of movie they're in. It depends on when it's being released, how it's being marketed. Like, there's a myriad of factors that result in whether a film can really take off the ground in any way. So just having Chris Evans in the film is not going to be enough to be able to bring things back from the brink. Just like having Robert Downey Jr. back and now in a different role is not going to bring things back from the brink either. So I really wouldn't say that it's much of a admission, because if they're just going to bring these actors back and try to have the actors themselves be the selling point, then guess what? That's not going to be enough, because even with Robert Downey Jr., they're not bringing him back as Iron Man. They're bringing him back as a different character. Okay, well, a lot of people are going to be like, oh, well, that's weird. No, thank you. And then the others will say, oh, Chris Evans, he's coming back. Okay, in what way? We don't know yet. Oh, okay. I don't care about that, right? So, I mean, unless they were going to just scrap everything and start over again, or start, continue on the story. But even then, right, because there's been so much nonsense that has been released on Disney Plus, most especially, and even theatrically as well, with only a couple of positive things, like Deadpool Wolverine being one of them, you're not really going to, I think, they're never going to admit their own faults. We've seen this with Disney Star Wars and Lucasfilm, and I think Marvel is no different in this capacity. There might be stuff happening behind the scenes, but these announcements alone are not going to be enough.
Well, they're just gimmicks. They're just gimmicks. Like, Spider-Man No Way Home, Deadpool and Wolverine, really enjoyed the movies, but they're basically gimmicks. They're fun events for the fans. They're very enjoyable, but it's a gimmick. Look, we brought something back. And that's what they're doing now with Avengers movies. It's not, we built up to a great story. It's, hey, look, they're back, which is just a gimmick.
Yeah, Brian, one of the big announcements that they made when they said that they were bringing Robert Downey Jr. back as an alternate Tony Stark, who's actually Doctor Doom as opposed to Iron Man, is they basically said that Doctor Doom was going to be the main character of the new Avengers, just like Thanos was the main character of Avengers Endgame, right? Or Avengers Infinity War, I should say. And there's a lot of speculation about the character that Chris Evans is going to be when he's coming back. So a lot of people are speculating that he's going to be Captain America, but he's going to be the Captain America who was the Hydra agent, as opposed to, like the Captain America we all know and love. So what do you have any speculation? Because, you're kind of tapped into like the comic book scene when it comes to movies. Do you have any speculation on like what type of Captain America Chris Evans is going to be playing?
Yeah, they can bring back anyone. Comic books are so convoluted, but specifically the Secret Wars stuff allows them a lot of freedom to sort of bring back whatever characters they want, and that doesn't mean those characters are going to stick around. It could be the Hydra version. That would be cool, but I think that would also that would be cool for fans, like comic book fans. But for normies, I think they would not like that. They would not like to see Captain America as bad Captain America. That's for sure. So they might just do the time travel, timey-wimey stuff. Like, hey, look, there's a version of Cap that exists right now, like during these events. That's staying out of it. So they can utilize him. They can also put him in a different character. Someone earlier was saying something that I agreed with. We are not fans of Chris Evans. Like we're fans of Henry Cavill. I'll watch Henry Cavill on anything. I don't really care about Chris Evans. I don't mind him. I actually liked Red One, but not because of Chris Evans. Like that could have been played by literally anyone, and it wouldn't have changed the movie for me. So when they announce he's coming back, and they don't announce like what he's coming back as, that's the rub. Like I don't really care. Like if he's gonna end up being some other character, like the character that he played that I like is Captain America. If you take that and you flip it on its head and you make it Nazi Captain America, it doesn't work for me. Yeah, I don't. Now I would like to see that as a comic book fan. I would like to see those interactions, but I don't think they have the balls to do it because normies wouldn't like it.
I mean, if they have that character though, we would want him to be played by Chris Evans, right?
Yes. Yeah, if they end up having bad Captain America, then yes, we would like to see him played like Chris Evans, so it matches.
Yeah.
But I don't think they have the balls to do it. I think normies are gonna freak out about it.
But Brian, you talked about briefly how like we like Henry Cavill because we like him as a person. He's genuine, like he's nerdy, he's one of us, and so he's built a loyal fan base just around his personality. With Chris Evans, you have almost the exact opposite, where he's been very hostile towards fans who don't share his political beliefs. He's been very condescending. Like he's basically someone who believes that his poop don't stink, and anyone who doesn't like him is wrong. Do you think that could play a factor when it comes to him returning to the MCU? Because he was on pretty good behavior up until after like he was out of his contract, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it could. It'd be funny to see how quiet he is leading up to this next big contract with Disney. I bet you he definitely keeps his social media a little cleaner. He's not as opinionated, I'm sure. I mean, he's not a dumb guy. So, I could totally see him relaxing his extremely hot, toxic takes until he gets that next contract.
Was Chris Evans in that movie in that clip thing they did for Kamala Harris? Was he in that?
Yes, he was.
Of course he was.
Yeah.
I didn't rember because there was a couple of them
down with democracy.
Yeah, he's actually the producer of that.
Okay.
It was his idea.
It was Thor wasn't in that, right?
Correct.
Yeah, neither was Ant-Man.
Right. Okay. So yeah, that was
or Chris Pratt, Star-Lord.
Right.
Yeah, okay. just the core Avengers, I guess.
Yeah. For Hemsworth, he's not American, so that makes more sense.
Yeah.
That's true. He's an Aussie. Right?
Yeah, he's like, hey, Thor, come do this thing. He's like, I don't know about that. Everything over there seems a little toxic, mate. I'm like,
I want people to like me. Yeah.
I'm not a great actor, but people like me generally. So I think I'm gonna keep my thing over here.
He's
going.
a good actor. Come on now.
He's not a great actor.
He's great. He was Furiosa, best movie ever, dude. Come on.
Oh yeah, he was great in Furiosa.
he was good in Furiosa. He was not great.
He wasn't the problem with Furiosa. We could say
he
that
was not the
much.
problem with Furiosa. That's for sure.
Well,
It was that nose. It was that prosthetic.
That's crazy.
It was those weird nipple clamps. Dutch,
What? That was my favorite part, the nipple clamps.
we know, Sean, you and your Christmas pajama bottoms. Yeah, there you go. Dutch, do you think that Chris Evans coming back to Marvel is actually going to bring people back to the theater? Because Marvel's done a lot of damage to their brand in terms of like just the crap they've been putting out.
I think the simple answer to your question is yes. I think them bringing back some of the fan favorites is going to put a few extra butts in the seats. That is 100% fact. It's probably a smart move because I think they're going to find out that Anthony Mackie is not going to fill theaters here very soon when this movie gets released, and they're going to need some of their original Avengers to come back and sell some tickets to some of these movies. So I think Chris Hemsworth is probably just the first one that they're going to end up bringing back. I think we'll probably see more, to be perfectly honest.
You mean Chris Evans?
Or Chris Evans? Yeah. So
well, they already brought back Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, they'll probably bring back Scarlett soon from some other alternate universe, and Jeremy Renner will be back. We're just going to get the whole gang back together and make another Avengers movie with the Fantastic Four or something. You might as well.
Are you going to see this when it comes out?
Well, why not? Sure, I'll go see it.
Okay.
I mean,
I want to ask the panel in general. So, like, if Captain America: Brave New World basically just shits the bed, how do you think that's going to affect things moving forward?
I mean, they've
not
already
going to affect anything.
Yeah, I mean, they've already lost like a lot of money on other projects, and it really won't, I don't think, affect too much because, I mean, this year really for them, I think, was really important. Like for a film like for Disney overall, for Inside Out to be this biggest movie of the year, for Deadpool Wolverine now to also be up there, for Moana 2 to also be trending very, very well worldwide for them. I think that this is kind of like in their mind probably a bit of a comeback. I do think they're going to come back down to earth with this specific film release. It will remind me, I think, a bit of what happened with Multiverse of Madness, where obviously it was Sony's success in Spider-Man, but in Spider-Man No Way Home, it was also one where they had 25% of the budget responsibility in that specific deal, in that specific instance, and so they were somewhat involved in that process then. But with that being said, right, they soon after that had this massive disappointment in Multiverse of Madness, and after this massive $450 million opening weekend, it dropped off like a cliff because the film sucked. So I think that probably happened with this movie, if I had to guess. But they're just going to keep rolling along. I mean, until they actually start to fire people and people at like the very, very top of the food chain, and start to have some real changes. I mean, I don't think they're changing because even though, as I mentioned before, at some point you gotta move on with projects that are losses, they do still have a lot of money. Not as much as a Amazon or as an Apple, but they do still have a ton of money.
Yeah, and Sean, I don't know if you've been keeping score on the Captain America: Brave New World front, but it's had 4 disastrous test screenings. It's gone multiple rounds of reshoots. Tom Connors likes to joke they only reshot 3 things: the first act, the second act, and the third act. So what's your take on Brave New World? Do you think it's going to be a huge disaster for Marvel?
I mean, they clearly are well aware that this thing's a big gigantic problem. They delayed it a year and they keep doing reshoots, they keep tests, and it came out of that era where it's like they were just microwaving scripts and hiring the craziest people. Like they got the guy that directed Cloverfield Paradox and went, here's $200 million to do a Captain America movie, and then the reaction to Falcon and the Winter Soldier was not very good, and the issue was so much the writing. So like, let's get those guys to write the script and the guy that did Cloverfield Paradox to direct it. What did you think was going to happen? Like, what did you expect? And so then they get a movie that tests horribly, and then you're trying to fix something that the foundation isn't very good. Like I never had any problem with Steve handing the shield to Sam, but then they've everything they've done with that, I think is terrible. And even if like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, there were even ideas in there that you can just sit here and crapshoot a better version based off ideas that were in the show, but they just gave it to the bad writers. And so they're trying to fix a thing that was never going to work because they started off of a very broken foundation and they trusted the wrong people to make it. So they've known this thing is a mess for a while. The question is, after they saw what happened with the Marvels and they've talked about doing actual showrunners for their TV shows, will they actually course correct? And it takes a long time to course correct with these projects that take years to make. So this one was greenlit in the middle of all of the insanity, and so you're still seeing all of that.
Yeah, guys. And speaking of bad writers and crappy comic book movies, Sony has decided to end their foray into the Marvel universe, and this is just hilarious because it comes right after the release of Kraven the Hunter, and we're going to get into that in a second. But basically, after a string of like really bad movies like Venom, say what you will about Venom, they're not good movies. Morbius, Madam Web, and now Kraven the Hunter, Sony has just been taking loss after loss on the chin and basically being reamed by fans by saying like these movies are really bad. Like they're so bad they're almost comically, they're almost comedies. They're like up there with The Room, right? So Sony basically said like, okay, enough throwing good money after bad. We tried to spin off our own Spiderverse off of the back of the MCU success, but it's not working. So we're just going to stop. And by all accounts, Kraven the Hunter is going to be the last Marvel movie that Sony is involved in other than the Spider-Man movies. They're still going to go forward with Into the Spider-Verse, the third movie. They're going to do the next Spider-Man Home movie. And they're also doing this TV series with Nicolas Cage with Spider-Man Noir. So the core Spider-Man stuff is still going forward, but all like their hopes to like take all the Spider-Man villains and side characters and make them their own franchises are no longer going forward. But I want to start off with Sean on this. So Sean, before we get into Sony basically putting the kibosh on this, you actually saw Kraven the Hunter. I don't know if anyone else on the panel saw Kraven the Hunter, but you had some very interesting opinions on it. Would you care to share what you thought about Sony's last foray into the Marvel universe?
So this was one of my most memorable and fun times at the movies this year for all the wrong reasons. I saw like very shortly into the film, everyone in my theater figured out we are watching a terrible movie. And it like at the beginning, there's this like 30-minute long flashback about Kraven's childhood, which is as bad as you'd expect it to be. And it gets to one point in time where young Kraven like yells at his dad, "I wish you had died." And then it pauses and my theater just goes, and for the rest of the movie, we're just laughing out loud at the film because it's just every line of dialogue, it seems like it was written by an alien that's never spoken to a human. There's a line of dialogue in this movie where a character goes, "Shortly afterwards, my grandmother died, and then I never saw her again." Like, right, she died. Like, what do you... And you think this is a movie that was reshot, delayed a year. There's so much ADR, and that line of dialogue with that delivery made it into the film. What was all the stuff they cut? What were the lines of dialogue they changed? If that was one of the ones that went, that's good enough, let's keep that one. The main actress or the female lead in this movie, she won an Oscar, and the next thing she did in this movie, and there's so many lines of dialogue where she's like, "I don't kill people. I am a lawyer." Like, you have an Oscar. How did you deliver that line?
Right.
And we're just laughing from beginning to end. The structure, it's like Daredevil with Ben Affleck. It's that level of structuring that we figured out this doesn't really work, but they went back to that. But yeah, we were laughing out loud. And as soon as the credits start rolling, our theater was like clapping. There was applause. We went out in the lobby and we were just quoting our favorite terrible lines, just roasting the film. I mean, it was just shockingly, it's a revenge movie. How difficult is it to make a fun revenge movie if Aaron Taylor Johnson is slapping bear traps on people's heads? How do you botch that? And they did. So it was like, it's impressive how they're able to take Oscar-winning actors, a very simple genre to deliver what people want, and they just crap out laughably bad movies. So I loved it. It was amazing. A+.
Yeah, you said it was like The Room of comic book movies.
That was the conversation out in the hallway. Everyone's like, this is like the room of comic book movies. Don't watch it just by yourself. But if you bring all of your rowdy friends, maybe bring in some alcohol or some other fun substances, and you will have the time of your life just roasting this film.
Yeah, and before that, it was Madam Web held that moniker, and then before that was Morbius. It's Morbin time. So how do you think that the Kraven film played a role in Sony's decision to basically say, okay, we're not doing this anymore?
I mean, I think you just look at it and you go, we're putting out like really bad movies. We are the laughing stock of the internet. Nobody, just like foundationally, these are terrible ideas. We don't think these villains are good enough to be the villain in our Spider-Man movie, but we think they're good enough to throw $150 million at them by themselves. Like, it doesn't even make any sense. And whoever the producer executive is that's running this branch are just putting out terrible movies that, like, stop and think. If the high mark that people are like, well, the good one is Venom. That's crazy. That's insane. If that's like, well, I mean, that one is almost competent. That's like the craziest franchise out there. If that's the best that you've got. And, Madam Web lost a ton of money. Morbius lost a ton of money. Where people are laughing at them. They're getting chatter and buzz for all the wrong reasons. The actors don't want to promote them. Like Dakota Johnson, when she was like doing the press tour, wanted to talk about anything else besides the terrible movie that she was in. And she was desperately trying not to go, I mean, yeah, the movie sucks, but I have to promote it contractually. So they have to see that and realize no one wants to sign on because they know it's going to get ruined by the producers. No one wants to star in it because they're just embarrassing themselves. Even if you give them $20 million, they don't want that stain on their reputation. So why would it continue? There's no wins here. It's only losses on every single level and huge losses because this is going to lose the money, reputation, all of it.
I don't know why we haven't gotten a Vulture movie yet.
Yeah.
I don't know why you guys are insistent on always dogging the masterpiece that is Morbius, because that movie is fantastic, and I don't care what any of you say. We all like to morb every once in a while.
Ironically, Madam Web was the biggest thing to happen to Sydney Sweeney because it got her out in front of a big male audience that then instantly latched onto her. It's kind of interesting.
Rare thing to happen.
Yeah. She failed upward through that movie. But Odin, I want to ask you about the economics behind this, because this seems to me to be more of an economic decision because Sony's realizing like these movies don't make money. And they could probably do a better job just licensing out these characters back to Marvel for use in Marvel movies and not have to deal with any of the headaches of production. So what's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the last hurrah for them as far as having any faith in this may have actually been back when Morbius first came out. And the reason why was because if y'all remember when that film came out and it had an abysmal weekend, I think it theoretically may have been better. I'll have to look at the numbers than the Madam Web in this one. But there was obviously no real interest in the film. The film was bombing and no one was going to see it. But then there was this huge movement online through memes to make fun of it, right? It's Morbin time, right? And this became this huge thing. And then what Sony did was stupidly think, oh, that means people love this movie. Mm-hmm. That means they're going to want to go see it. So we're putting it back into more theaters this weekend. Hey, everybody, it's Morbin time. Go see it. And no one saw it. So like, I think that was like their, okay, online movements that really doesn't oftentimes translate to real life. And that may have been the moment they were like, okay, yeah, let's just go ahead and not do anything for Kraven. And then just let's just, go off into a corner somewhere and try to figure things out. So yeah, this movie is going to be yet another flop, $110 million, which is about what they would typically spend on like the Venom films. They cost about the same amount of money. So it's kind of amazing that they're making these movies, which like, as far as like visual effects and stuff like that, they're not good, but they're also not like complete garbage. Like if they had a decent story behind them, most people would probably be willing to forgive some of the effects not having as clean or as polished a look. But I mean, it kind of is amazing that they're able to do some of these films and some of these set pieces for half of the money. And if they just had a better team behind them, they actually could be pretty decent movies. But unfortunately, they don't. So, yeah, I don't know exactly what their plans are going to be for the future, since it seems that the Venom franchise is done. Those films continue to make money somehow. And and clearly they've given up on this universe. The only thing that honestly could have saved Kraven is if I had a post-credit scene. I've been mentioning this a couple times. If there was a post-credit scene where it was Kraven, Morbius, and Madam Web all sitting at a table eating shawarma, that would have been a great throwback, and I actually would have gone to see this on opening night just to see that moment because of how stupid this all is.
Well, Brian, speaking of stupid, one of the things that came out with this announcement was that Sony had the rights to use the Tom Holland Spider-Man character, the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man character with impunity. Like they could have put him in anything that they wanted to do, right?
Right.
And so but some genius over at Sony said like, hey, I have an idea. Let's take all the characters that rely on Spider-Man to be interesting and make them in their own movies without Spider-Man.
Right.
And so like a lot of people are like, dude, if you had the rights to use Spider-Man, why didn't you use Spider-Man? Like, because that's the thing that people want to see. So what's your take on that? Do you think that Sony's just being run by complete idiots?
I think that someone over there had a good idea, and this idea was a good idea. It was, we need to let's do what Phase 1 Marvel did, and let's build up our catalog, and then have then start doing crossovers and have a balls out Spider-Man fight at the end. And in order to do that, we need to increase the popularity of these characters like Kraven the Hunter, Vulture, Madam Web, whatever, right? Especially Madam Web, she would be a big part of that, considering the comic books. So we need to increase their popularity. So we need to make movies where people can see these characters and fall in love with these characters. The normies can like them. And then we'll make a movie with Spider-Man. The problem is, great. I mean, that's a great plan, but the execution of the plan is not working out. These movies are not only bad, but it feels like the corners are cut. Like Madam Web had clearly what sounded like AI dialogue in it. It only missed like, I was at one point waiting for Madam Web to be like, okay, folks, open her dialogue with some typical AI thing, because they utilize AI with that script for sure. The editing was all over the place. It's like they have this really cool plan. They have the Kevin Feige plan, but they have no one to execute that plan. And they keep hiring people that are disconnected from what they're actually trying to do. And I don't really understand it, because Sean's right. There's award-winning actors, actresses, and talent in these part of these movies, and they can't seem to land the most simple. Like a revenge story is the most simple story, and they can't land that. Like, man, I could see Madam Web being a little harder to accomplish, but even that was so simplistic. Like they made it the dumbest possible version of that character, and they couldn't make that remotely good. The editing was off. There was too much. There's somehow same exact thing. We're gonna edit this for time so it can play more in theaters. But then you leave shit in there that has nothing to do with the story. It's such a weird. I can't explain it. It's like maybe they have like the same editor they keep going to, and the same certain talent that works at Sony that just doesn't know what they're doing, and no one wants to tell them so. I'm confused.
Just to be. What's the word? I don't know. But Sony isn't discontinuing the whole Sony Spiderverse. They're just stopping making these movies of these adjacent villain characters, correct? Because they're still making a Spider-Man 4. They're still making, the Miles Morales cartoon things, right? So it's not like they're not. It's not
they're not going to get rid of Spider.
They're not done making Spider-Man movies.
Of course not. They're
just done making these. They're just done making these nonsense side movies. With these villains that should be in the movies with Spider-Man.
You should just make Spider-Man movies and have these characters as part of them.
Right.
I don't know what we're doing.
Speaking of not knowing what we're doing, Mr. Butters, I know that no, this isn't about him, but the guy who
that's how it sounded, man. It sounded like a huge insult. Like, speaking of not knowing what he's doing.
No, I'm actually referring to Alex Kurtzman, because I don't know if you guys know this or not, but Alex Kurtzman was the architect of all these movies.
Shocker.
Because back in the day, he was the first movie he was set to direct was Venom, and he was over at Sony planning out what he would call the build up to the Sinister Six movie, right? Mm-hmm. But because all the characters were going to be, protagonists or good guys, it was renamed to the Superior Six, right? But like all these movies, Morbius, Madam Web, Venom, Kraven the Hunter, these were all brainchilds of Alex Kurtzman. And after he was kind of like removed from the equation, they just kind of like went along with like his overarching plan. But the brains behind this are Avi Arad, I believe, and Amy Pascal, who was the former head of Sony. And they've proven time and time again that they don't know what they're doing when it comes to this stuff. But Dutch, I want to ask you, what is the mentality behind like, hey, let's take villains and make them the central figure of their own movie, but not have them be villains?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess everybody has to have an origin story, right? I mean, I think traditionally, I've always been more intrigued by the bad guys, and I don't think I'm alone. I think bad guys are way more interesting when you get right down to it. You know, what's their motivation, what drives them, what made them evil, and maybe they were trying to capture some of that kind of thing with these characters. I don't know. I mean, why do people like me like Darth Vader? You know, why do I have a wall of Darth Vader stuff back here on my wall? You know, why are people enamored with the bad guys? You know, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I think, like you said, though, they were trying to do some kind of weird bad guy cinematic universe to get us all interested in a Sinister Six thing. And I think they just kind of went about it in the wrong way. They should have had these guys introduced in actual Spider-Man movies instead of trying to make their own little weird pocket universe with them. So I don't know.
It's like they're trying to reduce everything into a formula. The Avengers, like, you can reduce it to a formula, but that doesn't mean you can just translate to everything else and it will work. But that's what these executives, that they don't know anything about the fandom. They don't understand. There's actually no demand for a prequel to the origin story about 5D level Spider-Man side characters. Like, they don't understand that, but they just know that's what they own. So let's apply the MCU formula to that. And it's like, it doesn't actually make any sense. It leaves out, you have to have talented storytellers and you have to have an idea where there's an actual demand. There's a story to tell there that makes sense. And so it's this very bizarre thinking that's bean counters getting to make creative decisions rather than visionary storytellers that actually understand the fandom and the source material. So there's this huge disconnect.
Yeah, and Sean, you know what's weird is, like, so Sony had actually kind of set the groundwork for what could potentially be like interesting, like Spider-Man spinoffs. So like at the end of the first Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland, you had the Vulture in jail meeting Scorpion, right? And that was like an in credit scene where you're like, oh, that's interesting. And then I believe it was No Way Home, you had Venom crossover into the Tom Holland universe, and that could have been something that they could have really had a lot of fun with, because you know, who's a better Spider-Man villain than you know, Venom? You know, especially like when Spider-Man had the symbiote before Eddie Brock did, right? So there are all these like connective threads that could have gone in very interesting directions, but Sony just chose not to use them. What do you think was the mentality behind that?
I mean, this is one of those situations I can't wait until we get some tell-all book or documentary when everyone's allowed to say what on earth was going on, because it is a scenario where it seems like there's so many shockingly bad decisions that seem devoid of logic, where obviously it would make sense to do Venom and Spider-Man. And now we've done a full trilogy, and it's the fact that they did a post-credit scene teasing the crossover and then didn't do it, that's like malpractice. That's insanity. Like, what on earth are you doing? Except until you go, there's probably like very strong competing producers that are like, the MCU side are like, we don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. Please knock it off. Please stop doing that. We don't want to touch your stink. Don't get that on us. You're going to hurt our box office draw just to try and amp yours up a little bit. So I assume it's like that weird competing side to it, the different branches of it. Because like last year they put out Across the Spiderverse, and then this year they followed up with Madam Web. The disconnect in creative merit between those two products coming from the same Sony film studio is crazy. And it only makes sense if they're working in different towers, and certain ones, there's like 3 different ones, the Tom Holland one, the Spiderverse people, and then these morons. But it's crazy.
Yeah, and poor Tom Holland's like, guys, just put me in a movie. I don't what's going on.
Exactly. He has to play Romeo instead. Brian, wanted to ask you, like, as Sony is basically admitting defeat on the comic book front, you also have James Gunn over at Warner Brothers. And it seems like there's a mess over there because, like, a lot of people are like, okay, so what's canon and what isn't? He's like, well, the first, Peacemaker show, every time we mention something is canon, except when the Justice League shows up at the end, that's not canon because we're not using those characters anymore, blah, blah, blah. And it feels like DC is almost like on the cusp of what Sony's going through right now, where it's like so convoluted, so bizarre and it doesn't seem like Creature Commandos was blowing anything up. So
I loved it though.
So what's your take on the DC universe compared to like what Sony's going through?
I mean, the DC universe is yet to materialize. I understand that James Gunn has to make some changes to what's canon, what's not. He doesn't want to get rid of Peacemaker. To be fair, Peacemaker was outstanding show. Of course, he doesn't want to get rid of it, and that's his show. He wrote it, so he needs to somehow be able to wrap that in to the canon without too many plot holes. And so that's the best way to do that is say, you know what, this part of it is not part of my universe. It's not that unreasonable. And as far as the actual universe itself goes, first off, Creature Commandos is actually pretty damn good. It's a cartoon. It's not going to get as much play as live action is going to get, but it's really well done. It's unapologetically just fun. And if James Gunn approaches DC with in the mind of a fan who loves the material and is not trying to push an agenda and is unapologetic about having fun with this universe, then I think it's going to be a good time for DC fans. And while I love the Zack Snyder stuff, I don't really like Zack Snyder, but I liked that universe, and I love Henry Cavill. I'm looking forward to the next to the James Gunn verse, whatever you want to call it. I'm looking forward to it because I feel like it's actually being handled by a small group of extremely talented individuals who want the best for for DC, for that DC universe, and not for whatever studio happens to own them that day. And this is important that the top of the creative pyramid is James Gunn, who is very, very good at his job. And he has a partner with Peter Safran, who's doing all the administrative stuff. One of them is very, very good at how to handle the money and the business side of it. And one's very good at the creative side of it. And you have this team at the top of DC finally, who is creating a roadmap and personally invested in these movies to try to make the best possible DC. I mean, we are potentially going to see a best case scenario for DC. And if for some reason these movies don't land and it doesn't work out, then I think the comic book era is dead. I think it's officially dead. If this combination of creative talent with all the freedoms they have and everything that they've been given can't land this plane, then I think that just put it on ice. We'll reapproach superheroes in the 30 years.
Speaking of that, Odin, so we went through the golden age of comic book movies, essentially, right? From Iron Man to Endgame, right? But since Endgame, it seems like even Marvel, who kind of pioneered, the comic book formula, can't seem to get it right again. Lightning isn't going to strike twice here. So the DC universe, the Marvel universe, and the Sony universe have all kind of been seeing a pretty steady decline since Endgame came out. Do you think that we're in like the death throes of this genre, or is there a chance that it can be resurrected?
I don't know necessarily of the genre, and I would also argue that it's for the MCU as far as consistency goes. It's been dead since Endgame itself, like including Endgame, because I cannot at all fathom how that film can be seen as being objectively good. I understand why there are moments in there that people enjoy, right? That absolutely makes sense, but the movie is just poorly put together, and it's just a giant mess narratively speaking. And so I remember I loved Infinity War, and then I went to Endgame, and I was like, wow, that was not the film that we really should have gotten there. And everything since then has kind of shown us that they've kind of lost their step ever since really Infinity War being, I think, the last of the really good MCU movies. Now, with the other universes, I think we know, right, when it comes to the Sonyverse stuff, I mean, I think that those have been interesting to watch because the Sony Spider-Man movies specifically, I feel like have, had those like very decent releases where you have, films like Homecoming, Far From Home, away, and then No Way Home. And I think No Way Home was obviously the peak of that, but a lot of what No Way Home had was a lot of the member berries, was having a lot of the actors from previous films come forward. And honestly, I feel like they have maybe lost the opportunity to capitalize, because that was also the movie, speaking of No Way Home, that destroyed the COVID narrative. Right. That remember, just a week before that, I remember reading those articles, reading Tony over at Deadline. Right. Saying like, oh, well, here's the reason why the new remake of West Side Story flopped. It's because of COVID and make excuse after excuse. And then what happened the next weekend? We have $1 billion films on our hands, people. It's like, oh, what was the reason why? Oh, because it actually gave fans what they wanted, because despite the criticism we can have of member berries, when it's done well, that's what fans want, and that's what fans eat up. Great example, No Way Home, Deadpool, Wolverine, both are key examples, I think, of that very, very factor. I don't think DC is going to do it, though, because I know that Brian's a big fan of James Gunn and everything. James Gunn, yeah, but I mean, he's only done
unapologetically a fan.
Again, the only film that he's done in the like actual superhero universes that was like very good from beginning to end was the first Guardians film. Everything else he's done has either been just a major step beneath that or has even been bad. So
name one of his movies that are bad. Name one.
Let's say Guardians 2, I remember nothing about it.
Okay, no, just come step outside of MCU. Name a single
I said
movie
you didn't listen to me. I said specifically MCU, specifically superhero films.
Okay, so you are discounting the rest of his work.
I'm talking about his work within superhero movies, which is relevant to this discussion about him working within superhero movies.
All of his work has some kind of a sci-fi, tinge of sci-fi to it.
Still just talking about the superhero movies.
So you're just talking about Guardians specifically.
It's okay. No. We're talking about that. We're also talking about Peacemaker as well, because Peacemaker was not that good of a show, dude.
Okay, you're insane.
I'm not insane, dude.
This conversation's over.
I'm reading the chat, and everyone's like, "It was okay, it was meh, or it was bad." Like, I mean, that's just been the reaction to it.
Peacemaker was good.
And my favorite response was, "Hey, the theme song was good," and I can agree with that. The theme song was good. I actually really enjoyed the theme song. And then once the show started, I was like, "Oh, that's right, it's this show again." Don't get me even started on The Suicide Squad, which was a completely garbage film.
I'm sorry. You think which one was worse, Suicide Squad or The Suicide Squad?
They were both awful, and I don't even want to compare the two.
You gotta compare them.
If I had to put one on to watch, I would put the first Suicide Squad on to watch.
You're insane. You're an insane person.
Hey, at least I can laugh at that one.
Continue.
Right. We have opinions, man. We all have opinions.
But
Suicide Squad is actually a pretty damn good movie. And you have to look at what he had to work with. He was coming from Suicide Squad, which was a complete disaster.
Yeah, I agree.
But
I completely agree that was a disaster.
Movie that is entertaining and fun to watch.
But you guys you're missing the point that Morbius was better than all of them. Okay, so
now that is a fact.
That's true. Yeah,
let's say if I'll take the I guess what we had to come up with a name for this trilogy of films: Morbius, Madam Web, and now Kraven. There has to be like a perfect name that encapsulates that, because you know what? If there's anything that they might make some money on, if they start to bundle those three movies together and give it like an amazing, just completely just like crap name. No, again, but like to trying to give into the
anthology with like a
we admit this is the bad
artwork.
Yeah, like all right, here's the bad trilogy, or here's the garbage trilogy. Yeah. Would you like to buy garbage today? Go ahead and buy. Like, I would get that
anthology.
But yeah, so I don't think it's over necessarily, though, because they've shown they can still make money and they can still bring people out if they give people fan service. Like, if they actually return to kind of like the basics of actually giving fans something that they actually want, then we could definitely see a return to that. I just don't think the DC part is going to be really anything to come home to, because DC has just been a mess from the very beginning, with the Snyderverse films, which never were all that great.
Well, I would say that the man who doesn't like pineapple on pizza doesn't like Peacemaker, so there's a little equivalency there.
Good opinions continue on. Yeah. So.
I don't agree with the Peacemaker thing.
John
fair,
Cena.
John
John
Cena
Cena.
more to me.
John Cena is the greatest actor of our generation.
It's true.
John Cena.
Can't see me. Can't see me.
Or my favorite Vine from back in the day with the two flutes.
Well, guys, Sean, this super chat is directly to your take. Rensler for $2. You know, when Sean said, "Oh, it's the room of comic book movies," he says, "That's an insult to the room, sir."
You had to be in the room I was in watching Kraven the Hunter, and you would understand. That was a fun theater. You get the right people at the right time. Now, of course, that's not reproducible, so I cannot guarantee the results on the viewing experience watching Kraven the Hunter. I just happened to be in a really, really fun room watching a really, really bad movie.
I know exactly what happened, what you experienced, because when I watched Fast X in theaters, I think I went opening night, and everyone was just watching like it was a regular movie. Everything was fine. And at the very beginning of the movie, he has this moment where he's with Letty in their bedroom, and the camera pans over a shot of their wedding, and he's in a fucking white wife beater, and the crowd, the entire audience loses it. Everyone starts laughing, everyone starts hooting and hollering, and from then on out, every time Dom said family or there was something crazy that happens, everyone's just screaming and yelling. And then when we left the theater, it was like a weird, we all just met, but we're all friends now moment. It was the greatest night of my movie viewing life, and it was for Fast X, which is one of the worst. It might be the worst Fast movie.
So Morbius, how is your sex life? Yes. All right, guys. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the podcasting world, in particular, Daily Wire and Brett Cooper leaving the Daily Wire. Now, for those of you out there who maybe don't watch podcasts or political podcasts or whatever, Brett Cooper is a young lady. She is a former actress, but she was hired by the Ben? I'm blanking on his name right now. Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boring's podcast network, Daily Wire, to come on board and try to attract a younger crowd by doing a show called The Comments Section. And the comment section is basically her reacting to TikToks and stuff like that, but in a very intelligent and politically right-leaning way. And she's very popular on the network. She's been at the Daily Wire for 3 years doing the comment section. And in fact, they actually hired her to be their version of Snow White, as they're producing like a movie to rival Disney's live action Snow White. So we'll see how that comes out. But basically, there had been rumors going around this past week that she had been fired from Daily Wire. And Daily Wire is no stranger to controversy. They had this big kerfluffle with when they were negotiating with Steven Crowder. Then Candace Owens famously was fired from the Daily Wire because of her views on Israel and all this other stuff. And so a lot of people are like, oh, what's going on with Brett Cooper? Was she fired? And so she finally came out and addressed the rumors. And she basically said, no, I wasn't fired, but I am leaving the Daily Wire to pursue my other passions. And this comes right after her getting married and stuff like that. And I'm speculating personally that because of the Snow White role, she wants to get back into acting as opposed to being like, a podcast host or what have you. And also she might want a little bit more free time to, enjoy being married and start a family or something along those lines. But she basically said no, we're leaving on good terms. I'm still doing the Snow White thing. I'm just not going to be the host of Daily Wire anymore or comment section anymore. And of course, the Quartering was the first one in her comments to say hey, come join my network. So, in straight Quartering style. But Odin,
Jeremy,
Jeremy. Odin, what do you think of this announcement? Do you think that there was something a little bit more going on behind the scenes to this, or is this just Brett wanting to kind of move on and strike out on her own?
It's impossible for us to know. And that's what's so annoying about all of it, is that the amount of videos that have come out of people claiming either inside information or just keen insights has just been so insufferable, because ultimately the only one who really knows what exactly happened is Brett Cooper. So until she actually says something about it herself, and what the experience was, I'm not really gonna buy into a lot of the hype surrounding it. So, you know, and again, people could say, oh, I've got these inside sources who knew exactly what's happening, and look what's going on. She's deleting these photos. It's like, we can make speculations. You can do internet sleuthing, and there might be something to it. Like, for instance, there's that rumor that she and her producer had a falling out, and that's why she's deleting photos of her producer from her Instagram. And like, there's like all this like reporting going on. It's like, but we don't really know. We honestly do not have an idea of like what could have caused that to happen, or like if something else could have happened coincidentally at the same time. We honestly just don't know. So I don't think that there's anything nefarious necessarily going on. I would not be surprised if, hey, we're getting towards the end of the year, contract conversations might be happening. She may have wanted to get more money potentially, or had a different vision of what the future of the show was going to look like, and there was a creative difference, and then they left ways, and we're not going to find out the reasons possibly ever, especially with likely her having signed an NDA and likely wanting to just continue her career and wanting to keep a lot of that audience, and she's going to get it. Like, she's going to do fine. I mean, there's no reason for her to not do well after the fact, because she has built up an audience. And I think what people sometimes forget, because even I forgot this as well, she wasn't like homegrown, to my knowledge. She was not homegrown by Daily Wire. She actually had a show beforehand and then got picked up by the Daily Wire. And then obviously from that, her whole show got huge, and her presence got boosted quite a bit. So for her to go back, it's almost, in a lot of ways, I think, are going to be a return to a maybe more like comfortable space for her. Where she has more control of her schedule, control of the videos that she puts out, like whatever it is that she wants to do. I guess the only real problem could potentially be is, how much of the show was her? How much of it can she continue to do on her own? Or does she have to make a completely different setup? Because obviously she can't call it the comment section. She can't call it like certain things. But it's like, can she still essentially do the same thing? I would assume she can. But it'll be interesting to see exactly what she does. And I think she'll do fine, though. I think she'll be very successful after the fact. She clearly has a huge audience. I would say that the bigger question mark is whether or not the replacement of her producer taking on now the comment section's leading host, whether that's going to survive or not, who knows?
No, well, I'm sorry, we're going to add to that. I think one reason she's going to be fine is because she's going to keep her mouth shut, and that's important. That NDA is a real thing. I worked at Panasonic for a while, and if you asked me 15 years ago if I was fired, I would have said like, no, I'm going to go. I'm leaving to go focus on this thing over here. But in reality, I was fired from Panasonic, and it was messy. But I also had NDA, and I had a non-compete. And in order for me to still work in the space and do what I wanted and use my name and my social media accounts, I was forced, and that's the only word I can use, to play ball and to not paint my previous employer as a bad guy, even though I was taken advantage of, and they did me dirty. I think that Daily Wire, it's entirely possible that Daily Wire was straight up fired. I think there's a difference of opinion. It wasn't just what they wanted to do, but there was probably a difference of politics too. And I think the Daily Wire needs to make sure they keep as many of the dissenters out of their ranks, or else that entire thing can fall into chaos. It's being ran as a business. And so they quickly nipped that in the bud with Brett Cooper when her contract was over. And I think they got rid of her. They had already started to bring her producer into the show as her replacement off and on. So they were slowly working up to that before her contract negotiation even came up. So I do think she was fired, and I think she has an NDA and a non-compete, and in order for her to, snap back from this and hopefully become bigger and better than she was with the comment section, she's got to play ball with the Daily Wire.
Makes sense. I have not signed an NDA, and I'm going to write a really big scathing book about Kadish someday. It's going to be awesome.
No, me too. I'm actually writing it right now.
Stuff, yeah.
I actually write it while we're on the show. I mean, I look at the private chat. I'm like, these motherfuckers.
I take notes all the time.
I'm keeping receipts.
The first complaints could be, remember when he made us watch that video of himself for half an hour?
He made me watch Thanksgiving, guys.
Pineapple on pizza. He keeps calling me trans. I'm not trans. I don't understand it.
Unbelievable.
He made a calendar of us without our permission.
I made a calendar. Yeah. He's been sexualizing me for years. He keeps telling me to open an OnlyFans. I say, no, I won't do it.
Submit your complaints to HR.
He calls me Mr. Butt, regardless of how many times I tell him not to.
Yes. Speaking of which, Mr. Butt, Gina Carano posted a tweet or a Zeet, whatever they're called nowadays.
What?
Yeah, Zit. Basically, really kind of pumping up Brett Cooper's decision. She was very proud of her for striking out on her own and stuff like that. And Gina Carano, she's had her own kind of associations with the Daily Wire and the movie division over there. Do you think that this is just another example of YouTubers who get famous, kind of like going on to bigger and better things?
I mean, that would make sense, right? I mean, I listen, I don't watch Daily Wire. I've never seen this show with Miss Cooper on it, so I'm really not the right person to talk to you about this. But it just seems like, she came in there, she got famous, and now she's going to have a chance to capitalize on that. And good for her. I hope she's very successful. Maybe I'll go have to check her out after this. I'm just not a huge Daily Wire guy. I don't have time to watch it, so so I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. But
well, it wasn't interesting because like Daily Wire, they tend to be more male focused, but Brett brought in the female crowd, and she also brought in the younger crowd, which I think they were sorely lacking in. So like she was like an overall net asset to the Daily Wire. Yeah. And so like to see her go, it's kind of an interesting kind of like development there. But I want to throw this to Sean because Sean, one of the interesting things about Daily Wire is that they are trying to build kind of like a parallel to Hollywood with their movie and TV division and their kids division as well. And they're basically throwing their hat into the ring of like mainstream entertainment. But all of their stuff, typically it's been either movies that were independently produced and then they bought, or it was done in-house for a specific reason. But all of it's been going through like the Daily Wire Plus app and stuff like that. And all of it seems to have like the stink of political, bias on it. Right. So it's like, oh, if you watch a movie from the Daily Wire, it's obviously going to be political or have a political bend or something like that. Their big successes have oddly enough been their documentaries where they have Matt Walsh going out there and basically pulling a Borat, where like he's doing these documentaries and clowning on people in them, and they're super cheap to make, but they have been kind of making inroads into the original series. Like they have a Pendragon series, which is the Excalibur legend that they're going to be releasing. They're doing their Snow White mainstream film. But my biggest issue with what I've seen from Daily Wire is like they keep falling into the Hollywood trap. It's like they're giving us quote unquote strong female protagonists. They're doing things that might not be for a modern audience, but they're kind of in line with what Hollywood's been doing. Whereas what they should be doing is they should be doing the counter to what Hollywood's doing and give people like strong masculine leads, like dumb action movies from the 80s. Like that's the type of stuff that we've been deprived of for a long time. That's the type of stuff people really want to see. So what's your take on Daily Wire's kind of like alternate Hollywood content strategy? Do you think they ever have a chance of kind of breaking out into their own type of success, or are they just going to be playing second fiddle to Hollywood the entire time?
Just quick thoughts back. It'll answer your question, but like to something you said, I think that Daily Wire needed Brett Cooper more than Brett Cooper needed Daily Wire at this point in time, where she's the draw for her own show. It's not like they're propping her up. So her going independent seemed like made sense to me, and it's a loss for them more than it is for her. And even on the announcement, seemed like they're just trying to not have another Candace Owens situation, and they like shut it down so there's no drama. We did it together, though. You can just watch that video and go, of course there's something else going on here. What is it? I don't know, but obviously there's more to the story. As for your question, I think you got it exactly right when you said all of these Daily Wire films just have the stink of politics on them, even though the movies themselves might not. Right. That because they're being put out by an organization that is just so othered by the Twitter, this group of people, it doesn't matter that Run, Hide, Fight is just Die Hard at a school shooting. There's like it's not like someone is pausing to give talk about the Donald Trump in the middle of the film, and Terror on the Prairie. It's just a Western isolation survival film. They're just
Run, Hide, Fight's actually a good movie. But
I mean, I enjoyed both of these films well enough because I just like those kinds of movies.
Right.
Like they're like that, and that's what they're trying to do. But there's just so much of a you guys, Daily Wire's the villains. That kind of way of thinking. That as soon as a movie is released by them, it's seen as a political statement to watch it and review it. And so, like, both of those movies I talked about on my channel, and people are like, well, Sean, I had people comment like, well, Sean, you realize that that's the Daily Wire. It's like, I review movies. What are you talking about? Or, you know, Jeremy Johns reviews a movie that opened in the top 3 at the box office. And there's so like, of course, this reveals who his true character. It's like a movie critic reviewed a movie that was in the top 5. This is not a political statement. Like the fact that you view it that way reveals something about you. It does not reveal something about him. Just like crazy as can be. It was so frustrating that it's not. I think that's the problem that the Daily Wire putting out movies it will always have that issue so long as other people just other them and villain anything associated with it.
Sure.
It's perceived of as a political statement when it's literally, I watched a movie because it's a Western. I watched a movie because I'm a movie critic. How dare you? You can't even do like that way of thinking is so strange. But as long as that's out there, I don't think Daily Wire can ever break through that element.
No. Shapiro's too polarizing when it comes to that kind of stuff. He's going to always be. He's always going to have that stigma of the far right crazy dude attached to him. You know, there's nothing he can do about it either. Might as well just embrace it. In other news, I went over to Brett Cooper and I followed her on Twitter, and I just looked. She had a link up to her brand new YouTube page. It has no videos on it or nothing yet, but it's already at almost 200,000 subs. Yep. So I think she's going to be fine. It's 197,000 subscribers right now. So it'll be interesting to see what she does.
Almost as many subscribers as we have.
Yeah,
almost. You're getting there, Brett.
Almost. Oddly enough, we did hit the 19,000 subscriber mark today.
Nice.
So thank you to everyone who has subbed to the channel. Yes, we appreciate that. We're coming for you, Gary.
Coming.
That close.
Right.
We're on the way.
Real quick, we have a super chat from Major Chai Chai, a member for 11 months. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thanks for a great year of pop culture and entertainment discussions. You're welcome, Major Chai Chai. And thank you so much for being a fan of the channel and also a supporter. We really appreciate you. Speaking of which, he dropped a super sticker for $20. Thank you so much, Major Chai Chai. I really appreciate that. Again, he was waving the #1 fan flag. Yeah. Now, guys, before we get out of here, I'm going to throw you all for a loop. Because I have a story that I want to talk about that was not on the call sheet that I sent you guys. But there's been a kind of controversy going on the interwebs, in particular Twitter or Twix or X or whatever you want to call it. And basically, people have posted some paparazzi photos of everyone's favorite new starlet, Sydney Sweeney. And they're saying that she's mid, she's a catfisher, and all this stuff. And it was basically just photos of her, sunbathing by her pool, right? But it's opened up this entire conversation of, is she actually worthy of a man's attention? So I'm going to show you guys the pictures here. So this is the tweet where it says, this should be illegal. This is what causes misogyny. And so you have a picture of her, done up, but then you have this picture, which are the paparazzi photos of her, and she's just like a regular girl. She's just out there in her bathing suit by the pool. There's nothing.
Really?
That's the creepy part. That to me, the disgusting thing is the one that's taking the photos of it, because it's leave her alone. Just let her be a human being. Gosh.
Right. Yo, man, there ain't nothing wrong with that at all. That's far from mid.
But that's the debate that's going on right now is oh, she's not this super hot starlet that she pretends to be. She's just she's no hotter than the average girlfriend or whatever the case may be. But I want to ask you guys, do you think that there's anything to this debate where it's hey, is it okay for starlets to be just normal people, or do they always have to be someone's fantasy of what they should be?
They should absolutely not have to be a fantasy to anybody.
No.
I mean, they are human beings, and we should start to treat them like this. I mean, it's just, I've never understood paparazzi. I've never understood the concept of it. I'm kind of happy where I think as a culture moving a little bit further away from that. Obviously, it's still very prominent, but because the concept of stardom, especially during COVID, kind of got hit quite a bit, I feel like it's become a little less prominent. I'm hoping just every year we can get it less and less and less until eventually it's just almost non-existent. Because to me, it's just disgusting, right? For someone to be taking a photograph of somebody who is just trying to have a day off, who's just trying to, just be a human person for a bit. And so that's kind of my thought about it. Because ultimately, it's like, who cares? Like, again, she's a beautiful woman, and that's all there is. It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. The question should be is, are we looking at her as a human being, or are we and others trying to use her as an object? That's what it comes down to.
There are Twitter bros out there who have both said that Margot Robbie and Sydney Sweeney are both mid. Do you think they know what the definition of mid is? Like, what is this debate about women who are mid?
That one about calling Margot Robbie mid, that one was fun because then everyone's like pulled up the picture of him like, this guy is calling Margot Robbie mid. What on earth is going on? I mean, they're weirdos that spend way too much time on the internet disconnected from reality. Of like you have her leaning over like this, hunched over, and it's like, look, there is fat on her body. Like, what are we doing? Like, this is like the level of insanity to whatever that is. Even the idea that you would want her to like be dramatically leaner than that, like, it's just like so detached from reality and weird that even the thought of like, look, she's catfishing us because this is what she looks like in real life. Like, right, when someone shows up for a photo shoot, or like, I was at a award show Sunday night, so like I spent time doing my hair and trying to look my best, wearing a nice suit, so I look better there than if you see me at the grocery store. Like, this is just normal. Like, what are we talking about? But I think people post that stuff because they're trying to rage bait and try and get reactions, and here we are, we're talking about it because it's so perfectly stupid on so many levels of it's, dehumanizing. Why is someone taking pictures of her, and why are we like analyzing it? Like, everything about it is so ridiculous, and pretending as if she's not pretty is insane. Pretending as if she's fat is insane. But they just say outrageous things because you get reactions out of it. But that's what the internet does, and we're doing that right now. We're joining in.
Yep.
Yeah, Brian.
Yeah.
I know you're queer, but at the same time, you have to appreciate female beauty. Do you think that Sydney Sweeney's mid?
No, she's super hot. That's and so is Margot Robbie is even hotter than Sydney Sweeney, in my opinion.
And which do you think is hotter, the done up version or just the regular version?
Who cares? I don't really care. But I do prefer. I don't like makeup and all that stuff. I prefer just women to be natural. But I prefer them to be comfortable. Like, I would not be the guy out there scoping like, "What's up, man? What's up?" I don't know.
Telescopic lens.
Yeah,
You need to comb your beard before you do that, bro.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. Sydney Sweeney is hot. I know we've had this conversation before. I don't think she's very talented. I don't. But I think she's hot, and I think that she's very good at knowing what she's capable of and knowing her brand and pushing it.
That's it.
And that's great. Good for her.
Sydney has some assets that she flaunts and uses to her advantage.
100%.
More power to her.
And I'll watch movies that she's in for that reason, and in hope that other people around her can be charismatic and charming and all that, and make it work. And pretty much the same with Margot Robbie for the most part. I think she's super hot, but I think she's not. I don't think she can carry a movie by herself. Look at
Barbie.
That movie,
Harley
horrible
Quinn.
movie she did.
Harley
Quinn and the Fantastical
Prey.
something vagina.
The original,
monologue.
the original title, Harley Quinn and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn.
Retarded.
It was Birds of Prey, the Fantabulous Emancipation.
They finally changed it like midway, like what's first or second weekend they changed the title.
Yeah, so she can't. I don't think she can run a movie on her own either. Like, I think.
Well, I think we're gonna find out because I think she's working on a new Barbarella remake of the movie, right?
Yeah, but you want to compare it to someone who is an actual mid, but for some reason people prop her up as if she's some kind of like next coming of Marilyn Streep. Is Zendaya, whatever her name is. Yeah. She is not attractive. She's not talented. The way she looks at the camera is like she's just taking Quaaludes and chasing it with tequila. And I don't understand the draw of this person. But the same people that would complain about Sydney Sweeney being mid and Margot Robbie being mid are the same people that prop up Zendaya and act like she's the next biggest thing ever. And when she's not, she really is like totally talentless. She's super plain, and she looks and sounds like she's high all the time.
How dare you, Ryan?
Perfect
How dare
fit
you?
For Timothy Chalamet, because
Zendaya,
they both look like they're just sucking down Quaaludes
Zendaya
every
makes
day.
everything that she is in better.
She's horrible.
It just depends on what she's in,
horrible.
dude.
And I don't care what she looks like. I'm talking about her talent. She is
Her talent might be overrated, but yeah, greatest
guys,
showman. She does a great job in that.
He
film.
single-handedly gave me to an extra star.
Yeah, guys. Speaking of untalented mids, I want to thank my panel. We had a lot to talk about today, and we talked about it. Odin from OMB Reviews. Any final thoughts, and where can people find more of you?
Yeah, you can find me on OMB Reviews on YouTube, Odyssey. I was going to say Rex, but over on X as well, X/Twitter. And final thoughts would be, I still hate you for bringing up those topics last week, good sir, and I will not forget. So
let the hate flow through you. Indeed. Sean Chandler talks about a bunch of stuff on the Salty Nerd podcast. I want to thank you for being here yet again, even with your technical problems and your Christmassy pajama pants. Thank you for being here. Any final thoughts, and where can people find more of you?
I just find it interesting. Every time you have me on, there's some drama at the Daily Wire. That's like there's some correlation that like Steven Crowder, now Brett Cooper. It's every time. If you go to YouTube, search for Sean Chandler, you'll either find an NFL player or a guy that looks like me talking about movies. It's the guy that looks like me talking about movies.
And just to toot Sean's horn a little bit here, like his channel is excellent. His videos are excellent. If you don't follow him on Twitter, follow him on Twitter because he does good posts.
Remember, Sean, I made you. You're the reason why you're so large on YouTube. Was because I put you in my documentary. Remember?
That's right. That's right.
Sean is a true lover of film. So if you love movies and you love talking about movies, you can't go wrong following his stuff. So thank you for being here today, Sean. Brian from the Popcast, any final thoughts, and where can people donate to the GoFundMe where you guys are going to have to buy a new YouTube channel?
We're not doing all that. No GoFundMes, no OnlyFans. We'll be back. We're just struggling right now. We will get the channel back in line. They disallowed, like we appealed the decision, and that made it worse somehow. We should have just allowed them to knock the channel, and we can come back in a few months. We can keep streaming, and then we'll come back with monetization in 3 months. But instead, we fought it like idiots. Shouldn't do that. But we'll be back. We're gonna have the streaming rights back. It might not be next Saturday. We might just take the rest of the year off and come back hot in January because now it's the holidays. But we will 100% be back on the Brain Show, fighting the good fight, monetized or not.
Brian, there's other ways to monetize without having to give YouTube 30%.
Yeah, they're just not as effective.
I mean,
which is fine. It doesn't matter. And our main channel, which is our actual the way we actually pay for everything, we have a video coming out tomorrow. Unfortunately, we are not going to be able to do the entire franchise. Our 3-hour video has been continually claimed. We have been fighting with our rep and everything and this whole thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to break it up. So instead of doing one 3-hour documentary about the entire franchise, we're going to put out a video every week for the next 4 weeks with the first movie, the second movie, third movie, and fourth movie, et cetera, et cetera. And that we are allowed to do that. Apparently, the length of a video also, will add some weight to how many claims you get. So,
well, good luck with that, Brian. And Mr.
Tomorrow
Butters,
morning that comes out. Please watch it, everyone. Please.
Yeah. Mr. Butters, what's going on with the Salty Nerd Gaming channel?
Oh, we've had a actually crazy week over there. We had put a couple of videos out addressing the lack of content from Arrowhead Studios and Helldivers, and then all of a sudden they turn around and smack us across the face with a new expansion. So within hours of that video we put out. So it was a lot of fun, we're eating a lot of crow, but we're loving it. We're having a good time, and we're putting out multiple videos a week, and we're having multiple live streams a week. So having a good time over there playing our games. Path of Exile just came out, new Helldivers expansion. We got some other stuff going on. Just, playing games, man, having fun.
All right, good stuff. Want to give a big shout out to our super chatters, Mr. Fa Kiyu Asuke Miyu D and Rensler. Thank you so much for giving your super chats today, and also Mexican Iron Man and Major Chai Chai. Thank you so much for your super stickers. Really appreciate everyone who gifted subs. You guys are awesome. Appreciate all of your support. Can't do the show without you. And until next time, my friends. Stay tuned. Same salty time, same salty channel for Salty Saturdays next Saturday. Until then, stay salty.